He jammed the barrel so close I could smell the oil on the metal. Red and blue lights pulsed through the pines, cicadas singing like they were trying to drown out my heartbeat. "You're gonna drive off and forget my name," he hissed. I looked him right in the eye and said, calm, as Sunday morning deputy, "I'm going to end your career by lunchtime." Next day, he wore handcuffs like a wristwatch. That night was supposed to be simple, just me, a rental sedan, and a stray shot into Maple Ridge, Georgia. 10 hours on the road, windows cracked, old R&B, whispering through the speakers, humidity, hugging everything like a damp quilt. I grew up a couple counties over. Left young, stayed gone, worked my way up through departments that didn't know what to do with a black woman who didn't scare easy. And now, after 2 decades and more night shifts than I can count, Maple Ridge had hired me back as their new chief of police. My GPS kicked me off the interstate because of a wreck up ahead and dropped me onto a road that looked like it was paved by a rumor-narrow, crooked live oak branches knitting overhead. I checked the dash clock, 11:41 p.m., and promised myself a shower, a greasy diner breakfast, maybe 6 hours of sleep before the mayor's little welcome chief show and tell. That's when the world lit up behind me. I did the things mothers teach their daughters long before driver's ed ever does dome light on engine off hands at 10 and 2. He took his sweet time getting to my window, dragging his boots so I could hear each gravel crunch. Then came the flashlight, hard and mean in my eyes. License and registration. His tone said he wasn't looking for information, he was looking for compliance. I told him I was reaching to the glove box, moved like molasses, laid every document out like a place setting. He glanced at the name, rolled it around like it tasted bad. Naomi Brooks. "You ain't from here. Visiting for work." This late, he leaned in breath like old coffee and sunflower seeds. "See, we keep things quiet out here. Outsiders get ideas." "Outsiders," he said, but we both heard the word he didn't say. Something that's lived under my ribs since I was 12 tugged itself upright. I met the glare of his flashlight, found the shape of his face, the jaw, like a cinder block ice, pale and flat as winter. The pin on his chest read Rourke. The stripes said sergeant, but his posture said owner. "What's your badge number, deputy?" My voice dropped into that place where I don't wobble. His eyebrows twitched. "You're not in a position to be asking me anything, ma'am. 2 seconds from me pulling you out of this car." "No cause," I said, "and my phone's recording on the seat." It always is when I don't know the zip code. He smiled without warmth, hand sliding to his holster like it had been born there. "You think you're special driving a car like this? You better watch yourself. Folks get the wrong idea." There it was, the line in the sand. I could let it slide, take my dignity home in a to-go box, and deal with it later. Or I could be the person Maple Ridge was paying for. I breathed once. "Deputy Rourke," I said, "steady tomorrow morning. I'm going to make sure you don't wear that badge again." His face emptied out like somebody yanked the plug from a sink. The gun cleared leather so fast the night choked on the sound of it. Cold steel on my temple, cicadas, suddenly quiet like they didn't want to be witnesses. "You ain't doing a damn thing," he whispered. I didn't move, didn't blink. He wanted fear. I gave him inventory where his feet were, where the cruiser camera pointed how he angled the gun. I looked through him, past him, to the version of tomorrow where that weapon sat in an evidence locker with his name on a tag. I didn't want revenge. I wanted system. Sun came up sticky and unforgiving. The assembly hall was all folding chairs and floor wax. I stood behind the curtain, listened to the mayor warm up the crowd with the usual transparency, community new chapter. Out there in the back, I could feel him without seeing him. Big Dog Rourke laughing low with 2 officers who wished they were him. And now the mayor boomed, "Please welcome the new chief of police for Maple Ridge, Naomi Brooks." There's a particular silence that happens when somebody's past crashes into their present. I stepped out in a Navy uniform that fit like a decision. Found his face in the crowd, Didn't give him anger or triumph, just the plain fact of my existence. I talked about choices, about trust you earn in quarters slow and lose in dollars fast. He stared through me and into his own ruin. You know what I did next? Nothing, not to him anyway. I signed overtime slips, sat through budget meetings, tested radios. I nodded at him in hallways with the same even courtesy I gave rookies and crusty detectives who'd seen more than I had. Rourke started hearing ghosts in every ringing phone, jumped when the captain cleared his throat, drank too much at Sully's on Thursdays. Meanwhile, I sat alone most nights under a little brass desk lamp reading old internal affairs files that smelled like dust in avoidance. Patterns talk if you listen right. Dismissed complaints about attitude. DUI cases where breathalyzer numbers vanished like morning fog. Cars impounded by Pioneer Recovery, owned by the cousin of a councilman who loved shaking my hand and saying, "Ma'am." Tow fees that could knock the wind out of a paycheck. A shell company paying consulting to no one at a P.O. box 2 towns over. I called in a favor from a state attorney who trusts me because I never asked her for a shortcut, just a fair fight. Subpoenas moved. Bank statements arrived with the kind of route numbers you don't want your mama to see. Then I needed one ally inside my own walls, someone who still slept at night. Detective Eddie Salazar fit that bill. Quiet guy. Stalled out right below lieutenant because he didn't know how to flatter fools. He sat across from me, hat in his lap like he was about to get scolded. "Eddie," I said, "I'm not here to flip tables. I'm here to fix what's busted." "I need ears." He weighed my face. Decided I meant it. "Chief," he said, voice low evidence didn't get lost. It got fed through the shredder. Rourke calls it cleaning the windshield. And Pioneer folks call it the Maple Ridge tax. You pay Rourke, you tow for us. Been that way. I felt tired for a second, tired for every neighbor who got ground up because standing up cost money. Then I felt better, because a map is all a person like me needs. We set it like a stage. Through the State Bureau, we brought in an undercover agent, Marcus Dean, a young black man with a watch a little too loud and a smile he could dial brighter or darker depending on the room. He played the rep for Arrowhead, towing a not-real company with very real paper. The pitch doubled the consulting exclusive calls, no questions. We wired the briefcase to table the man. Sully's back room smells like spilled beer and broken promises. Rourke slid into the booth like he paid rent on it. Marcus met him with that respectful swagger that puts bigots right at ease. "Sergeant Rourke," he said, "we want to earn your business." Rourke didn't bother with small talk. "My officers call who I tell them. You pay on time, Arrowhead gets the work." The case open stacks, strapped neat. 10,000 to start. The sound money makes when it hits wood is the same in every county in America, soft, final, ugly. His pupils did a little dance. He didn't count it. He weighed it like kings used to weigh salt. "You step out of line," he said, closing in the case. "Your trucks don't get a single call." Crystal, Marcus said, and left with a nod that said the help appreciated the opportunity. Rourke lasted 12 steps into the alley. Windbreakers with big white letters. A light stuttering above the door. Eddie standing at my shoulder like he'd been waiting 20 years to exhale. Rourke stared down at the briefcase, then up at me, struggling to move his mouth around a story. "Chief, this isn't 2 words, Deputy Rourke." My voice didn't need to be loud. "You have the right to remain silent." He sagged in a way that made him look smaller, like the uniform had always been borrowed, and it finally came due. The council chamber filled up like rumor had pulled the fire alarm. Reporters who never spelled my name right. Old church ladies in floral dresses, their lips pursed the way they get before they say, "Bless his heart," and don't mean it. And Rourke, no stripes, no gun, just a cheap button-down that made his belly look like a confession. I didn't give a speech. I laid a story on the projector. Bank receipts that flowed in a circle. Complaint forms stamped unsubstantiated in ink that looked older than most of our patrol cars. Audio of his voice in Sully. My officers listened to me. Not the chief got real loud in that room all of a sudden. I watched faces change, shock, embarrassment, anger, grief. It always surprises me how grief shows up at times like that. Folks grieving the picture they held of someone they trusted. The council voted without theatrics. Unanimous. Rourke stared at the floor as the troopers stood him up. He did look at me once. There wasn't hate left, just the hollow that comes after you realize you built your house on sand. Here's the part people don't see on the news, the quiet afterward. The files that still need sorting. The rookies who stop by my door just to ask if we're really going to change things or if this was a show. The old heads who pretend to grumble but start turning in cleaner reports. The diner owner who slides my check back and says, "Next one's on me, Chief," like maybe we nudged the needle a little. I sat alone that evening, sun draining out of the sky nameplate, catching what light was left, Naomi Brooks Chief. Felt heavier than it looked. I thought about that gun on my skin, about the way power tries to skip the hard work by puffing up, pointing, pressing. And I thought about the kind of power I want to leave behind, patient, documented, boring, in the best way, the kind that lets a kid get home safe, because the rules apply to the people who carry the rules. I know some of you will say, I should have fired him the morning after that stop. Believe me, I wanted to. But I didn't need a headline. I needed a house cleaning. If I'd made it personal, it would have stayed small me versus him, two egos in a ditch. This way we reach the roots. So now it's your turn. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me if you've ever watched someone wear a badge or a title or a family name and think it meant they owned the rest of us. Was I right to play the long game, or should I have pulled the plug the second he put that gun on me? What does justice look like where you live? Punishment or rebuilding or some messy mix of both? Drop your stories in the comments, because sunlight only works if we keep opening the blinds.